There we go. I'm really excited to introduce Amy Coates Madsen. She's been a friend of our organization since back 7 years ago when we became Momentum Nonprofit Partners, and now we're Tennessee Nonprofit Network. We are a proud replication partner of Standards for Excellence. Amy's going to tell you a lot more about that, but there are a lot of free resources that we haven't really talked about yet that nonprofits can access. Dorian Hines is on the call. A lot of y'all, I've referred to Dorian to get those free resources. Amy will talk more about the free resources, but I can tell you, right now we have to send those to you. When you have a question, we're going to have a new CRM in about July, where you're going to be able to access all those free resources without even having to contact us. That'll be behind the firewall of our CRM. So you're going to have access to all the hundreds of templates and board responsibilities packets, and all of that will be free as part of your membership with TNN. So Amy knows a lot more about this than I do, because she's been doing this for 20 plus years in the same role with the Standards for Excellence. So she knows it back and forth. I'll let her introduce herself, but I want to turn it over to you, Amy, and let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's wonderful to be with all of you today. Can you hear me okay? See my screen? Okay, great. And as Kevin said, it has really been an amazing opportunity to have a chance to work with Tennessee Nonprofit Network. And the organization has been one of our leading Standards for Excellence replication partners since 2017. And it's been such an honor and a privilege to have a chance to work with the group when it was based in Memphis. And certainly as you move statewide, even more exciting to work with all of you. Whether you have just joined your organization or you've been fighting your organization's good fight for over a quarter century like me, for many of us, the needs are greater than we've ever seen before. And we're working just as hard as we possibly can to keep up. We've got really full plates. You're probably crazy, crazy busy, working extremely hard to meet the needs and keep up with your organization's mission. I read an article a couple months ago that talked about the fact that every day maybe feels like a Thursday, because we find ourselves working 7 days a week, working so hard to meet the just profound needs in our communities. And in the midst of all of this, we have organizations to operate. And I know that the organizations that I have a chance to talk with are always asking questions like, I wonder if my organization is operating in a way that helps us to be as effective as possible. Do you ever think that? Am I doing this in the best way possible? Or, and I just wrote a blog about this actually a couple weeks ago, are you afraid that every single thing you're doing is done in an emergency and held together with duct tape? Do you feel like all of those things are done at the very last minute, as opposed to in a planful, intentional way? You give me the thumbs up if you agree with that. And so we are going to be talking today about your organizations and the Standards for Excellence program, thinking about how your organization measures up to practices and principles and benchmarks that would be considered strong governance and management in ways that your organization can intentionally put in place an infrastructure that helps you meet your awesome community missions. So we'll spend some time learning about best practices that will help you strengthen your organization. We'll identify some of the most challenging of the benchmarks and standards. And we'll learn more about how organizations that are struggling with these real issues can use resources to improve their organizations and better serve the clients and their communities that they serve. So we want to do what we can as part of the Standards for Excellence program to make sure that you are fit and ready to meet the big needs that you've got right at this second, tomorrow, and in the years to come as well. Now, we know that the folks on the call represent a variety of different types of organizations from all around the nonprofit sector, all around the state. And there the sector is so diverse and broad, looking represented by churches and hospitals and schools, environmental activists, developers, preservationists, conservationists, social service agencies, that there are nonprofit organizations there to meet the different needs in our communities. Over 1.8 million nonprofit organizations around the country. And I thank my colleagues at Tennessee Nonprofit Network who shared with me that in Tennessee alone, 40,000 nonprofit organizations, 40,000 alone, representing 8% of the workforce and 10% of the gross state product. So just a big, broad nonprofit sector getting its arms around such big community needs. So nonprofit organizations depend upon the public and the trust of the public in order to get its job done. We depend on government for our very tax exemption. We depend on tax deductible contributions, which will hopefully be even expanded with some things that are being considered on the Hill right now. We depend upon foundation grants. We depend upon our ability for people to trust us enough to become our volunteers and our board members. And we have that public trust is important across the board. We also know that there's a lot of competition in the nonprofit sector. We're competing with each other for funding. We're competing with each other for volunteers, staff, board members. And so there is a lot of competition even among our sector that is out there doing the amazing work every day. We're also in a situation where the public is becoming a little more sophisticated. Back when I first started in this work, and nearly 30 years ago, it seemed that every time you would look at a newspaper article or a magazine article about nonprofits, they would focus in on one metric. They would say, they would talk only about the percentages that organizations spend on program administration and fundraising. And due to many factors, I think people are starting to realize it's not just that one metric that makes a good nonprofit. And of course, nonprofit leaders like you have known that forever. And so we know that donors are more concerned than just those ratios, which just tell a fracture or a sliver of the whole story. We also know that we're under great scrutiny. When I first started in this work in the 90s, the Baltimore Sun paper had a nonprofit beat reporter, and that was Les Picker, and everybody wanted to be Les Picker's best friend because you wanted to have your story in the paper about how great your nonprofit was. And over time, that position, like many of the positions at the major newspapers, was eliminated. And so now if the nonprofits are going to be on the front page of the paper, it's more likely to be in an investigative journalism rather than in a piece talking about how great the organization is. And anytime you turn on your phone or look at the headlines, that 24/7 news cycle is constantly sending us headlines. And as a result, there's just increased expectations among the public, and there's increased scrutiny and concern. So there's folks are looking at nonprofit organizations, and they're looking at how they do their work, how they're managed, how they're governed. Anybody in the room think of any organizations where you can learn this type of information about nonprofits? Maybe put it in the chat if you don't mind. Let me get the chat up. All right, well, you might be thinking of things like, sites that match volunteers, sites that match board members, sites that help you find jobs in the nonprofit sector. Many of us probably use GuideStar on a frequent basis, catalogs of philanthropy, things like that. And these types of organizations create at our fingertips the opportunity to learn about what nonprofits are doing and how they're doing it. We also know that the Internal Revenue Service, which of course is the most important regulators of nonprofits, certainly the federal government agency that's giving us our tax exempt status, and where we're reporting annually, that they believe that well-governed charities are more likely to obey the tax laws, safeguard charitable assets, and serve charitable interests than one with poor or lax governance. And so it's not surprising that that annual tax form, the full version of the tax form 990, has a lot of questions about nonprofit governance and management. Now, these questions aren't required by law per se. They're not codified in the federal tax code. But that annual form asks for all kinds of things like your conflict of interest processes and how that works in your organization, wants to know if you've got a whistleblower policy, wants to know about how you handle joint ventures, compensation, solicitation, about your auditors. And all of these items are, of course, available to the public. And our experts will tell us, you want to be able to check, yes, we have a conflict of interest policy. You want to be able to check off, yes, we're dealing with document retention correctly, and things like that. And so with all of these reasons, like how big the sector is, how competitive it is, the scrutiny that we are facing, the IRS, the issues around the public and public trust, this all points to this idea that we as nonprofit leaders need to pay attention to all of these kind of in the background issues related to how your organization operates, how it's managed, how it's governed. And once you're aware of these best practices, your organization can be in a position to better focus its energy on achieving its mission and running your programs, and staying in business, rather than like which piece of duct tape is going to fall off because we put something together in an emergency. So with the Standards for Excellence program, which is offered by Tennessee Nonprofit Network, through a partnership with the Standards for Excellence Institute, which is my organization runs the Standards for Excellence Institute. We have these two goals around strengthening nonprofits and improving the public's trust. And we provide this through education, assessment, implementing best practices, through accreditation and recognition as well. And so the program has several key components. The main centerpiece for the whole effort is the Standards for Excellence and Ethics and Accountability Code for the nonprofit sector, which outlines these best practices for our work. We also offer education and training to help organizations live by the standards, and do some public awareness and education to the public, and also offer opportunities for organizations to earn a seal for showing that they implement either all of the items in the Standards for Excellence or a selection of the items in the Standards for Excellence in our recognition program. So the standards itself, it serves as a consensus model for how well-managed and responsibly governed nonprofits operate. And if this standards is available on our website and through the Tennessee Nonprofit Network website, and we'll go over some of the details in a bit, but it's divided into these 6 areas, covering mission, strategy and evaluation, leadership, legal compliance and ethics, finance and operations, resource development, and public awareness, engagement, and advocacy. And the standards set a high bar. They go above and beyond the legal requirements, but they're intended to provide a model for how you can achieve a responsibly governed and managed organization. They reflect consensus about how nonprofits ought to do their work. I think I'm going to encourage everyone to give the full standards a look after today's call. And I think as you read it, you'll agree with the standards. There's not much in the standards that you would read and say, oh my gosh, I don't agree with that. You're going to find that you agree with the standards, and you'll probably also find that many of the items in the standards are things that you've had on your to-do list for a little bit of time, maybe a couple months, maybe a couple years. The reality is that we can all implement these standards. Now, do we all implement 100% of them right at this moment? Probably not, but we all could if we intentionally embrace these standards for excellence. So I mentioned before that we've got some resources, and Kevin mentioned them at the top of the hour as well. It is our goal with the Standards for Excellence program that if we have something that we describe in the Standards for Excellence Code, that we provide resources to help organizations live by that particular standard. So we are very intentional about providing top quality resources that you can use today. We have a series of 27 educational resource packets that are available to members of the network at no charge. And as Kevin mentioned, soon available through the password protected portal for members as well. And those packets, just to give you an idea, they tend to include a description of why that particular standard is important, a lot of different scenarios as to how they're carried out in organizations, and then sample forms and policies that we provide not only as a PDF, but also in like Word or Excel format. So you can take them and modify them and use them in your work like right away. And so we're really, we're proud of our work to provide resources to nonprofits, and we're excited to have the opportunity to work with partners like Tennessee Nonprofit Network, who gets those in the hands of nonprofit leaders who need them right now. In addition to these educational resource packages, we offer training programs, and our partners have the ability to offer different types of training programs, whether they're brief sessions like today, our kind of brief introductory session, or longer term multi-session clinic series, cohort programs, or in the case of Tennessee Nonprofit Network, even the Nonprofit Academy, which is phenomenal. And I've taken the whole class. It's really, really well done. In addition, you can call and ask for assistance. Like, gosh, I'm dealing with this hard conflict of interest problem. How can I handle that? And these are the kinds of things that we help with as well. So just to give you like a taste of some of the resources that we find are most helpful to the members that we work with, includes things like our guide to remote work, our model employee handbook. We've got a model disaster plan, our legal requirements checklist. We've got a whole bunch of resources on sustainability and sustainability planning, always important for our work. Got some resources on partnerships and mergers and financial planning and policies as well. And so this is just a taste. As I mentioned, there's 27 of these packets altogether. And all told, there's many more than 27 models and samples. Some of the packets have just, maybe 10 resources or 12 resources or things like that. I'd also mention that some of our packets on board topics are just really, really popular because so many times you have a board of folks who really want to do a good job, but they maybe have not had the opportunity to be trained, don't have the opportunity to really know what makes a good board member. And they've been on a variety of boards that kind of reinforce that no one knows what their responsibilities are. So so I would definitely encourage you to check out those resources. Okay, good. I'm glad you're sharing those on a regular basis. So let's talk just a little bit about the opportunity that you have as a nonprofit leader to have your own organization be reviewed using these standards for excellence benchmarks. For organizations that are interested in showing that they live by all aspects of the standards for excellence, the accreditation program is for you. And that provides you with the opportunity to provide that documentation and understanding that your organization lives by each aspect of the Standards for Excellence Code, from mission to board governance to legal compliance, public policy, finance. Across the board, organizations that earn that seal of excellence are strong, well-governed and managed nonprofit organizations. We also offer 2 additional ways that your organization can set yourself apart from the community of all the nonprofits in the state. And that's the Nonprofit Basics recognition and the Nonprofit Basics Enhanced recognition. And so both of these opportunities give you the chance to show that in basics, you can show that you've got strong policies in place for governance, you're you're complying with the law, and you've got this good foundation in place for your mission and program impact. Basics Enhanced builds on basics, and it's the step between basics and full accreditation. So we add to that some additional policies and reports and things that are vital to help your organization meet all of the standards and um, be strong and implement these best practices. And so organizations may choose to start with basics, then move to basics enhanced, and then move to full accreditation. Or nonprofits may choose to go straight to accreditation. It's your choice. And you would do that through the Standards for Excellence Institute. And as a member of Tennessee Nonprofit Network, you are provided with the member pricing, which is half price on putting your applications together. So that's a nice benefit for you as a member of the network. Organizations decide they want to be accredited for like so many different reasons. And I like to kind of group them in terms of the internal reasons and then like the external reasons. So in terms of kind of internal reasons, lots of organizations are in the midst of transition at any moment in time. And there's a lot of groups that will say, you know, they know that the executive's getting ready to retire. As the executive's getting ready to retire, or maybe find a new position, they want to put the organization in great shape for their successor. So the standards gives just a really great opportunity to make sure that your organization is in excellent shape. The standards can also help you improve your board performance, improve the way that you are addressing equity and inclusion. And then externally, you can also look at things like becoming more sustainable, earning the public's trust, and certainly raising more money. That is an issue for most every organization that we come in contact with, and a very big reason why organizations participate in the standards. You want to set yourself apart from the 40,000 other nonprofit organizations in the state. We did some research a couple of years ago, which looked at 102 accredited organizations and compared them with 102 organizations that were similar size and type, but not accredited. And it showed that following the time an organization had earned the seal of excellence, their direct public support, their fundraising that they raised was higher than the direct public support of those who did not earn the seal by a pretty significant amount. So we are grateful to the researchers. There were a research team from around the country, a researcher from Louisiana and Wisconsin and New England as well. And I hope it's okay to mention this, but this is especially exciting as I talk about accreditation. Currently, and right now, we should be setting off fireworks because Tennessee Nonprofit Network is currently the only organization in the entire state of Tennessee to have earned the seal of excellence from the Standards for Excellence Institute, and it's fresh. The paint is still drying on this new seal at Tennessee Nonprofit Network, and we are just so proud of the important work that you're doing. So, I don't know, Gavin, do you want to say a word about that? Like, that would be terrific.
Sure.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I will say this was a lot of work to get this done, but we feel really, really great about the work that we did do internally. We had to have some really hard conversations with our board of directors. You know, like we had to have some really hard conversations with the staff on some policies we needed to change so that we could be in alignment. And it's only made us better. So we're really pleased to be the first. We don't want to be promoting this without doing it ourselves. So it is a lot of work, but I know that we have grown in this process a lot, and at the very right time for us to grow and get in alignment with the Standards for Excellence. So we're really proud and excited to be y'all's first Tennessee accredited organization.
Excellent. Well, congratulations again. And the seal holders are from all kind of walks of the nonprofit sector, super tiny, all volunteer organizations, as well as, you know, organizations that have budgets of $50 million, like and representing all different mission areas. So we see organizations participating from just the broad spectrum of the entire nonprofit sector. Oops, there's a question there. Oh, this is always the best question. Lisa asks, on average, how long does it take to achieve the seal? So that's a great question. And it's one that has the standard, it depends answer, because it really depends on where you are when you start. It's like asking, how long would it take me to walk to the White House? Well, if you're on Capitol Hill, like a few minutes, but if you're in Knoxville or Memphis, a much longer amount of time. And it's like that with standards in terms of where are you when you start? We always encourage folks to start by doing an assessment of where they are today. And that assessment, I'll talk about in a few moments, but there's a free online self-assessment that you can take that then can help you to put together a plan. And based on the assessment, you'll know if you're halfway there, 95% of the way there, 5% of the way there. I mean, most of the time when the organizations we work with, they are implementing about 2/3 of the standards right when they start. And so it's like implementing that last 1/3 of the standards and locating the documentation is where they're putting their effort. So for one group, it might take a couple of months, and for another group, it might take a year, might take more than a year, depending on which of the standards they're living by and which ones they need to start over again. Now, thankfully, nobody has to start from scratch because all those educational resource materials provide models and samples that you can use on an ongoing basis. All right, so I am also wanted to share with you, so Tennessee Nonprofit Network is in good company. We have a dozen partners all around the United States who are also offering the Standards for Excellence program to the nonprofits in their networks. So we've worked with several of the other state associations of nonprofits. We have a couple of national partners, including the Leadership Roundtable, the ARC of the United States, the American Nurses Association, and the Center for Public Justice. And we have one regional partner that serves in North Texas, SVP Dallas. So we have several partners that are all offering services to the nonprofits that they serve using these resources of the Standards for Excellence. Now, in Tennessee, being affiliated with the Tennessee Nonprofit Network has a lot of benefits, including the member rate for accreditation and recognition applications, free access to this big collection of resources and tools in our resources, and then access to the training and supports that are offered by the network as well. And I wanted to make sure that I paused and spoke briefly about the Nonprofit Academy online, which you can access. You can register and you can access that through the Tennessee Nonprofit Network website. I don't know if anybody from the network wants to say anything else about the Nonprofit Academy online.
Yeah, sure. So the Nonprofit Academy, we built it based on the Standards for Excellence. So if you go through it, it's only $100. And if you go through it, you get to download all of the packets right then and there as a participant. And we also go over the different standards. So there's videos, there's interactive games. We gamified some of it. So if you're really thinking about whether or not you want to work towards accreditation, I would recommend going through that course. It's kind of an introductory course to all of the standards and really look at what's there. You also get all the standards packets all at once. So it's a really good deal because I know other places are charging, not to give away trade secrets or anything, but in other states people are charging $1,500 or more for their standards training. So this is a really good deal that we've made sure it's affordable for our nonprofit partners.
Kevin. And in addition, we also work with licensed consultants. And so the Standards for Excellence Institute offers this program called the Licensed Consultant Program, where individuals can apply to participate. And if you are in Tennessee and you are interested in becoming a licensed consultant, you would need to reach out to Tennessee Nonprofit Network first, which you'd need to have a letter of endorsement for them to have a successful application. And we've got quite a few licensed consultants in the state of Tennessee right now, and at least one or two on the call today. So I don't want to miss anyone. Not all the name tags say the exact name, but special shout out to all of the staff members at Tennessee Nonprofit Network, who are all, except for one new hire, licensed consultants. I don't think we have any other partners that have all of their staff members as licensed consultants. So that's a really special thing here in Tennessee. And also shout out to Noah Spiegel. It's great to see you, Noah. Also a licensed consultant, and I think you're based in Nashville. I think that's right. So, and there might be other licensed consultants on the call. If you are present, great to see you. And I know that Tennessee Nonprofit Network works with licensed consultants when they're hosting Nonprofit Academy related events and similar efforts. So we're so glad to have a chance to work with licensed consultants in your state as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your organizations and how you're measuring up in terms of the standards. And I also want to make sure that I mention again that we have you have the opportunity to complete an online self-assessment if you'd like. And this is available for free. Here's the link. It probably takes about 15, 20, 25 minutes, and it step by step goes through all of the different benchmarks in the Standards for Excellence Code. And once you hit submit, like instantaneously, you get a report back that will tell you how you are doing in each of the sections of the standards. And then also give you a score for your assessment overall. The really nice thing about this report is that it also outlines which ones of the educational resource packets available through Tennessee Nonprofit Network you can download to help you with the items that you've mentioned you aren't implementing right now, or that you're partway implementing right now. So that could be a big help to organizations as well, and can help you answer that question: how long will it take me to earn the Standards for Excellence accreditation? So just a little bit about the standards code. I was telling somebody recently, I can talk about the standards for 5 minutes or 5 days. So you're getting kind of the quicker version today. And I encourage you to take some of the classes at the network to get even more details. So the standards, we look at that. We start with mission, strategy, and evaluation, and we're encouraging organizations to have a well-defined mission statement, that they're doing long-term planning, evaluating all of their programs, and then when engaging in strategic partnerships, have a really great way of doing due diligence, and also having the partnerships in writing. We see lots of nonprofits that get into partnerships that are not really beneficial to them, and they just keep going because they can't figure out a way out of them, and that the nonprofit is just giving so much more than they're getting in return. So we want organizations to enter into partnerships with their eyes wide open. The next section of the standards looks at leadership, and this is the most comprehensive section. There's a lot of details about the board of directors, their fiduciary and governance responsibilities, their work in supervising the executive director. There's quite a few standards around the effectiveness of the board, like how many board meetings they should have, and that they should have job descriptions in place and evaluate their performance and have term limits, things like that. We also have a standard around succession planning and leadership development. We look at having enough board members, and that those board members are independent of one another, and that they're having at least 4 board meetings a year that are supported with minutes that are happening after the meeting's concluded. One of our favorite resources is in this board responsibilities ed packet, where we've got a job description piece. Someday I'm going to write a book on nonprofit, and it's going to be about how important it is to have board job descriptions with like all kinds of job descriptions. But for now, we've got this educational resource packet that describes the importance and then provides samples that you can use in your work and to be able to implement that in your organization. making the modifications you would need to make it fit with the work that you are doing and your own organization's bylaws. We also look in this leadership section at the functions of the executive director or the chief executive officer, whatever title you might use, how they're supporting the board in charge of that sustainability in the organization and managing the other employees and volunteers. We also have in this section a piece on a set of standards on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we know that organizations that incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into their work and as part of their missions are more effective and engaging, serving people across different cultures, backgrounds, and abilities. And so these standards are looking at how you assess how you're doing in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then what kind of plans you have in place to address the gaps that you've identified in your work. The third section of the standards looks at legal compliance and ethics and the kinds of things you'd expect. You know, we're complying with the law at the local, the state, and the federal level. We're have those right disclosure statements on our fundraising materials and the material we provide to the public, that we've got protections in place for whistleblowers, and that we're handling conflicts of interest appropriately, as well as having a code of ethics. Now, see, I want to pause for a second and just mention, to have a quick case study, if you will. Let's say you joined the board of a small Friends of the Library group in your adopted hometown, and you were reviewing the organization's bylaws, and you found that 7 of the 12 board members have relationships with the organization. Maybe you've got one member who's doing printing, one is providing office space, one's providing computer technology, one's doing insurance. Basically, more than half of the board members have contracts with the organization. Just put in the chat how this makes you feel as a new board member. Okay, we're a little nervous, we're worried. This is kind of anxiety producing, concerned, sure. Yeah, all good. Meetings could be awkward. This is tough. The organization is serving as a private piggy bank for the board. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on that as well, Noah. So this information is available to the public, right? Every time you pay a board member for something, which in and of itself is not an illegal activity, you have to report it to the public. You have to report it on your Form 990. And it has an appearance here that there are so many of these relationships on this small board that it looks like you get on the board and you get a contract. And we all know that nonprofit organizations need to ensure that we are not small businesses in disguise, that in fact, we are always putting the best interests of the organization first, and that we're not in business to privately benefit individuals. So the Standards for Excellence program encourages every organization to have a conflict of interest policy and a conflict of interest statement that your policy would outline. You know, if there is a potential conflict that comes up, here's how you handle it. And you would have a conflict of interest statement or disclosure statement where you would outline things like who is in your family, what businesses do you own, what properties do you own, that might come into connection with the organization. And you're under a continuing obligation to disclose these interests, whether you're a board member, a staff member, or even a volunteer if you've got like a significant decision-making authority as a volunteer. And that type of volunteer might be like the person who plans your gala or something like that, who can decide to have the gala at the place that had the best pricing and the best opportunities, or they can choose to have it at the place that their daughter is the manager and needs to make budget, you know, every quarter or something like that. So we encourage every organization to be super careful as it comes to conflict of interest, adopt a conflict of interest policy, use a conflict of interest statement, and constantly review potential conflicts by people who don't have a potential conflict in the situation. The next set of standards looks at finance and operations with the types of things you'd expect. That we look at budgeting and approving the budget prior to the start of the fiscal year, having quarterly internal financial statements, having financial policies, having administrative policies, having an audit if you are spending at least $500,000 or more, and then also appropriately handling risk management and insurance. And I know that one of our licensed consultants, Ted Billick, does a lot of work with Tennessee nonprofits related to risk management and insurance. So that's great that you've got a good connection there as well. So in terms of like purchasing or procurement, the Standards for Excellence actually provides some great resources on this as well that are available to you as a member. So check that out too. The fifth section in the standards is resource development. So it looks at how are you planning for your, what's your resource plan look like, making sure that your sources of income are in keeping with your mission, looking at all your activities, making sure that you've got good policies in place for your donors and how you're accepting gifts, and then how you put control over those who are fundraising on your behalf, whether they're staff members or consultants, or maybe the 4-H club around the corner that's having a drive for some sort of tool or service or good that the individuals you serve might need. We also look at public awareness, engagement, advocacy. It's the last and sixth section of the standards. And in this section, we talk about nonprofits, the importance of engaging and educating the public. Here's where we've got a standard about having an annual report that's available to the public that has some basic characteristics in every annual report, and that you're not charging for that when you're distributing it. This section of the standards also looks at having a way for the public to interact with your organization, a policy on advocacy, and assurances that you're not engaging in partisan activity in your work. So move ahead just a moment and just encourage you to look at these educational resources, attend training courses that are available, engage with licensed consultants who have a lot of expertise on how to implement all of the different aspects of the Standards for Excellence, and ask for help as well. We also encourage you to assign one person to help your organization implement the standards, hopefully with the assistance of this board committee and that staff member, another volunteer, go through the items that you need to update one at a time. I always suggest that you start with the easy things and get those out of the way, but maybe you like to start with the harder things and get those harder things out of the way. But so spread the work around, delegate, and kind of think about, like, what will your first steps be? I encourage you to make sure your first step is this online self-assessment. And then once you complete the assessment, to share the results with your colleagues and your board, and decide which changes you want to move forward first. Put these on your plan. Make this part of your strategic plan for your organization to really improve the infrastructure in your organization and get everyone involved in embracing these best practices. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Y'all feel free to unmute yourselves, or you can put the questions in the chat if you'd like.